Hello students, so today we are going to see two programs in function overloading. This is from the object oriented programming chapter, so this is the revision part. Now, function overloading. So we have been using this function overloading in uh, the latter part of the program, starting from the object-oriented programming to classes and object, constructors, destructors, inheritance, and so on. Right. So, so you must be familiar with this function overloading concept now. But if you are not, then watch this video, okay, and understand the concept nicely. Now, what is this function overloading? Now, in the starting of the function chapter, you have seen that you declare function or prototype, and then using the function prototype, that is declaration of the function, which shows the return type, the function name, which is the user defined function name, and then the argument type and the argument name, or the parameter type and the parameter name. Now, in the function chapter, you saw that for every function it should have a different function name. But now, using this function overloading concept, it is possible that you can use the same function name again and again in the program. In the same program, you can reuse the same function name, provided two things are different, that is the argument type and then the argument name, or the parameter type and the parameter name. Right. So now, so the concept of function overloading is, right, you can have the same function name, or you can use the same function name, or you can create several functions with the same name, provided the number of arguments and the types of arguments differ for all the functions. Right, that is in the calling function and in the call function. Okay, so if you see this program, they use function overloading with different arguments. Now, so here in the main function, you will see that the function calls are there. This is the calling function, this is the calling function, and this is the calling function. So this calling function, it calls parameter of integer type parameter. So as you can see here, the arguments that are passed by this function, is integer value, and in this case the arguments that are passed by this function is double. As you can see, this is a real number, what with decimal point, right? So in case of double, so we have in with real numbers, we have floating point types, we have double, we have long double. So in case of double, it can accept more number of decimal positions, say like in the up to decimal 6 positions. That means from the decimal point up to more than 6 or up to 12 positions of decimal values. All right, so you can see that the function name is same, but the argument type and the argument value is different here. So the argument type should differ. So in the case of the third calling function, as you can see that the string value is passed. So the string value is passed, that is the string constant. Right, so Mr. John Smith, which is enclosed within double quotes. So now when the main function executes, step by step it will go on. So the first function call will call this call function. So it will invoke this calling function. The main function will invoke this calling function, all right, and it will call this call function. So the compiler will temporarily come out of the main function in search for this function name show of type integer. So as you can see that there are three call functions or three function definitions. So in the case of this one, as you can see that the return type is void. The function return type is void. That means this function does not return any value to the calling function, to the main function, right? As you can see that within the function body, so this is the function body, within the function body only a cout statement is there. So once this cout statement is run, then once the statement cout statement is run, then it will come to the closing braces, and then the control will come back to the calling function and then execute the next line statement. So no value is returned back to the calling function. So that's why the return type is void for all of these three functions. Now as you can see that all the functions have the same name, so you can see that it is in the same program. But here the argument type, that is integer, and the argument name is roll. So here the argument name or the parameter name is fees, and here it is character array. So all the data types are different: integer, double, and character. Right. So similarly here in the call function, as you can see within the parenthesis, this function executes on this variable, or that means the value that is passed from here is stored in this variable roll. Alright, so in the call function, so here within the parenthesis, what happens is that you are declaring the variable of integer type, that is the variable name is roll, and then this variable accepts the value passed from the calling function. Okay, so here this variable is declared in this call function. So the call function declares the variable, and then this variable accepts the value, right? Because the without a variable, if you do not declare a variable, no memory space will be allocated, and that means this value cannot be stored in the call function, cannot be passed to the call function. So now, so the function definition, what it does is that it declares the variable so to accept the value passed from the calling function, right? So this variable is declared here for the first time, right? So this variable is actually a local variable within this function body. So if you declare a variable here int roll, so this variable int roll, and here this is different, all right? So that means local variables. So this is local variable only within this function body. So similarly here double fees, all right, and this character name. So double fees, so this will accept the value that is passed by this function, and character name, as you can see that this is a string value, right? So that's why here in this function a character array is declared. That means a character variable or a string variable is declared. So this square bracket denotes that this variable or this is a array, right? So Mr. John Smith will be passed and stored in this array name of type character. So when the cout is run, it will display all of these messages. So since the values are already pre-written in the program, so user does not need to type anything from the keyboard. So when you run this program, you see that you simply get the output as here. In the case of this, an integer value; in the case of this, a double value; and in the case of this, a string value, right? Now let's see another program to show function overloading using different types of arguments. All right, so there also we use different types of arguments. Here also we are using different types of arguments, but in here you can see that here we are declaring a function prototype, right? So using function prototype. So now this is a function prototype. Similarly, this is a function prototype, and this is also a function prototype. So here three function prototypes are declared. So what it does is this is similar to a variable declaration. So this is simply a function declaration, this which tells the compiler that this is the function name, which is user defined, and this is the return type, and these are the this is the argument type, and this is the argument name or the parameter type and parameter name. All right, so this function declares this variable a, and in this case you can see that the return type is int and the parameter type is double. So always when you have different data types, right, that is the parameter type and the return type does not match, all right, now the priority is given to the return type, right? So which means that even though this function, okay, this function, the parameter type is double, that means a double value will be returned back to this function, yet when the output is run, the double value will be converted into integer type, right, because the return type has the highest priority. So in the case of this, you have long double. Now long double can take in more numbers of decimal point values, that means more than 12 decimal points after the decimal point. Okay, so in the case of this also, you can see that the parameter type is long double. So in the main function here, you have assigned the value 10 to the variable b, which is of integer type. Then you have assigned the value 10.4 to the variable q, which is of double type, and you have assigned the value 10.77 to the variable r, which is of long double. So when the cout statement is run, right, so here square p, now this is actually the calling function, right? So this is the calling function. Similarly, this is the calling function and this is the calling function. Now what is this? So here this calling function, what it does is it passes these arguments of, that is this integer value, to the call function, and in this case this is the call function or the function definition. So the value of p is passed and stored in this variable a, right? So as you can see that the function prototype, it matches the function prototype. So this is the call function, and this is the calling function, and this is the call function. As you can see that the calling function and the function prototype, it matches, because it tells the compiler that, all right, this function prototype is going to be used in the program, right, that is as a call function. So the parameter type should match, and then the return type should match, also the function name should match. Now here the variable is declared as a, and here the variable is declared as a, right? But this a and this a, it is different. Now suppose like if I change the value of this variable a to say like o, all right, now it won't matter, because here this variable a, which is declared here, is a local variable. Now in the case of this particular function, all right, it returns, using the return statement, what it does is that it returns the output value. So it returns the value of a into a, that is 10 into 10. So 100 will be returned back to the calling function, right? Because here you can see that the cout statement is run in the main function, so the cout statement is not written here, right? So since in the case of this call function, you can see that the return type is integer, so which means that this function returns an integer value. That's why the return statement is used here, returns an integer value back to the calling function. So in place of this calling function name, 100 will be returned back, and cout will display that, right? So here we have the NL manipulator, which is similar to /n, right? So which returns back the cursor to the next line, and in the next line statement again cout square p q. So again this value 10.4 is passed to here. As you can see that the data type is double, right? So the compiler will search for the parameter type which matches that. This is long double, so it does not match. This is integer, right? So in the case of this, the double, it matches, so this value will be passed to this variable a. And then again in the case of this also, it returns the value back to the calling function. Similarly, long double 10.77 will be passed to here, and it will also return back the value. Now since I've changed the variable here O, alright, okay, let me change it back to A. So if you run this program, you'll see that you get this value 100, 108, 115.993. Now if I change this also, it won't matter at all, right? You'll be getting the same output. Okay, so changing the parameter name does not matter, but if you change the parameter type, right, so here is double, and in the case of this is integer, right? So as you can see that you get an error, right? So call to overloaded square in ampersand is ambiguous. So in the case of that, it is not. So there an error is produced because it does not recognize this integer data type, because in the function prototype it is mentioned double. So you revert it back, and then you get the correct output. Alright, now in the case of this, as you can see here, as I've said, the priority is given to the return type. So here it's double, and here it is integer. Now if you see the output is 108, right? So now let's change it back to double. So if I make the changes here in the return type, here also you have to make the changes. And now let's run this output. So as you can see that the output value has changed, right? So this way you have to make sure that, so this way using the function prototype, okay, it minimizes the error. Okay, so this is how you use a function overloading. So the concept of function overloading is very important. All right, so you have to understand this concept very nicely, because it will be used in the later part of the chapters in the rest of the programs also. Right, now the advantage of this is that, so you can reuse the same function name again and again in the same program, because if you cannot reuse the same function name every time, you have to create a different function name for all of the function programs, right? In that case, the length of the program will increase, and then complications in the program will also arise. So for that purpose, right, this function overloading concept is used. So students, what you do is that you type out this program, okay, make some changes in the program, and see the different outputs that you're getting. All right.